Welcome to our show host series. Couple weeks off. Don't worry, good stuff in the works. Just getting back at it. And I actually have an interesting topic for you today that you're not expecting. Obviously, you read the title of the video before you clicked on it, but we're not talking about podcasting today. We're talking about what are all the other ways you can create really powerful, helpful, impactful media that's not podcasting that actually might fit even better what you are up to. And the reason I'm recording this is because I have conversations every single week with awesome people. You call them talent or founders or personal brands or creators or creatives. There's all sorts of words for the people that I work with, but they're already really established in what they know how to do. They're experts in some kind of way. They've been practicing for over 10 years in something. And the conversation I always start off with when they approach me about doing a podcast together is like, tell me what you want to accomplish with this show and why a podcast and who it's for and what you hope will come from it. And then sometimes I talk them out of podcasting and I talk them into another type of media project. And so if this is you and you've been wanting to talk to maybe a professional producer or a media strategist about the idea you have and what media channel or like style would be best to accomplish your purposes, hopefully this video will help. So I'm going to talk about YouTube videos and kind of a few different ways to use YouTube. I'm going to talk about audio recordings, audio books, meditations, classes, private podcasts, things like that. I'm also going to talk about kind of the blending of these styles in these worlds and what's happening like very currently this year in sort of the new horizon of media creation, because the truth is like things are evolving so rapidly in a good way that you really don't have to fit your project into a certain medium anymore. And I'll explain what I mean. So first off, let's start with YouTube. Sometimes people come to me and are like, I want a podcast and I want to, build my brand as a speaker. I want to connect with my audience. I want to build, brand recognition with them. I want to let them see me as I really am and give them really good information. I want to be found by the audiences looking for me. So I want to boost my discoverability. And I don't think I want to go for super long. Like I don't need to be talking for an hour, but I have really good stuff that I know I can consistently share with my audience if I have this show. And I usually say, well, actually, how about you do a YouTube show and not a podcast? And here's why. YouTube is obviously visual. Podcasts traditionally were not. There's kind of a blend now of video podcasting, and we don't really have a good term for it. And so people call video shows podcasts, but like for the purposes of this video, let's call it what it is. Video podcast, like YouTube is a video platform. And if you do a video show, meaning like you post videos regularly, maybe once a week on a channel, similar length, similar topics, similar format, we could just call that a YouTube show. It is really good at building your visual recognition for speaking opportunities as well as audiences, getting to know your actual face, mannerisms, body language, energy level. Like video is very good at that. And so if you're trying to build a speaking career, if you're trying to get booked at events as a paid speaker, if you're trying to really connect with an audience that's growing who wants and it would make sense for them to actually have like a visual recognition of you, maybe you do live events or you go on tour or you are a facilitator who's often in person with people or digitally, and it helps for your brand to be recognized by face, like video is very good at that. Other reasons I suggested YouTube over podcasting: discoverability is a lot easier and higher on YouTube. It's a search engine and podcast apps are not. It also is a place where you can make shorter form content very effectively. And the algorithm on YouTube, you still have to honor it and play to it, but it will support short form content. Not like mini stuff, not like, TikTok video stuff. Like that's obviously good on TikTok. There are YouTube shorts, but I'm saying like something between like 2 to 10, 15 minutes. Like that's a really good time slot for YouTube videos. And podcasts are fine if they're short, but podcasts were kind of made to be more like 20 to 60 minutes. Like that's more been the home of podcasting. So, all good reasons to consider a YouTube show versus a podcast. There are others, but we'll keep it brief for today. Okay, let's move on to audio projects that maybe aren't just a traditional podcast. So we talked about audiobooks. Like if you are a writer and you have written a book, there is obvious evidence for you to record the audiobook because that form of reading is skyrocketing. There's so much money now in audiobooks versus written books. So don't count out doing audiobooks as a project instead of a podcast. There's obvious perks. You can sell them for money. You can do a direct revenue stream, but also like you can publish your own audiobook, and you can just like self-publishing a written, like a paper book, you can do the same thing with audio. So there's not a lot of like barriers to you getting your audiobook out if you own the rights. If you've gone through a traditional publisher, you would need to check your contract whether you own the rights to your audiobook, but hopefully you do. We talked about maybe something more like meditations or spoken word affirmations. I've done really cool projects with people through the years that were more of the blend between like poetry, meditation, and affirmation. It's not really a podcast. It's this other kind of content. It's the kind of content that's really popular on Insight Timer and other meditation apps. People repeat listen to that type of content over and over and over because it's really helpful. And if it's something they can go to as a resource and rely on. So if you have that skill and you're that type of creator, like you don't have to podcast. You could make another kind of audio project and you could distribute it on a big app like Insight Timer. You could distribute it directly to your audience. You could put it on YouTube. Like that's actually super popular. If you Google meditations on YouTube, you'll get so many videos that have so many views. Videos, they're just audio files. So just remember that like there are many audio projects that don't have to be a podcast. Maybe you want to do more of like a audio course that is literal educational content, that's designed to be listened to in sequence. That's a supplement to maybe a course that you have or your most, common teachings that are part of your expertise. So you can either do that on a private platform, like a private podcast that people pay, like there's a paywall in front of it. You can use platforms like Hello Audio or Supercast or Supporting Cast. I mean, there's so many, but Hello Audio is a really cool platform to check out if you want to kind of marry audio courses with maybe some of your paid products. That's just like the tip of the iceberg on that one. But learning through audio is obviously very effective for many people. So if you already have products that involve educational style content, like that could make a lot of sense. There's just so many other things, right? Like master classes, we think of those as visual products, and they are, but there's so many people who will listen to master classes on audio. Maybe it's like a 2-hour master class, like you maybe are used to teaching that in a webinar, but you could create the audio version of that. You could put a paywall in front of it or not. Like there's so many things you can do there. So those are all some audio projects you can do without being on a podcast form that can be super helpful and awesome fits for your projects. And then the last thing that I mentioned, again, I'm trying to rapid fire, spark some ideas in your head. And if you have questions, you can leave a comment and I can go deeper into some of these, or you can email me, Christine@worthvillemedia.com, and we can chat about like what makes the most sense. It's one of the best parts about being a media strategist and a podcast producer is I get to kind of help our clients figure out like what is actually the right media channel for the thing you want to do and where you want to go. Okay, the last thing, I'm stalling because I've already forgotten what I said and I don't want to edit this video. I'm going to have to. Okay, I remembered. I literally had to go back and watch the video because I couldn't remember what I said. And it's because there's a blending going on. And that's what I mentioned at the start. Like, how can you think creatively about how to blend media styles, formats, platforms, whatever you want to call it, to suit your goals and your audience's needs and your strengths, really, is what it comes down to. So let's say you have had a concept for a show and you're like, maybe it's video, maybe it's audio, but I really only need to do like 5 or 8 episodes and then it can be done. Like it doesn't need to be an ongoing thing. Okay, cool. Now we can think through, all right, who's the audience for it and what's the purpose? Like, what is it going to help people with? And is there a follow-up? Like, is this the type of 5-part series that then will lead people to go work with you, maybe as a coach or a consultant, or hire your company or buy your product? Or is it designed to then kind of build relationships that will open doors for work you want to do? Maybe you want to feature these really interesting people who are experts in your space on this 5-part series because the 6 of you, your 5 guests and you, all have this project you want to work together on, and you need to be able to have a format to explain in depth like the work you all do, and then you use that to pitch maybe a collaboration with something bigger. Maybe you just need it as reference material for a bigger project you're doing that's like a collaboration with multiple organizations, but you have access to these amazing people and you're like, we need to sit down and record these conversations that are targeted at the big project, and we need to make them available to these people. Like, that is a blending of podcasting and an educational course and a masterclass. And so maybe you distribute it on podcast apps because it needs to be available to the whole public and easily found on any device. Or maybe you decide to distribute it only on your website because that's where you're directing everyone. Maybe it's part of like a bigger pitch for this other huge project you want to take on. And so you need to put it on YouTube because that's, where everyone in the world of the big project is going to be. That's kind of a smarter way to think through like what platforms, what format, and what style are we going to make this thing with, than like, hey, we need to make a podcast and then try to fit your project into podcasting. Does that make sense? So I want you to start thinking creatively. I want you to think about your end goal, who the audience is, where they are, and like what the ideal distribution is to get the project to them. And then sort of like reverse engineer and be like, well, what does this need to be? Does it just need to be a limited series? Does it need to be video? Does it need to be audio? Does it need to be both? Does it need to be available to everyone or just a select group? Do I need to have a paywall in front of it, which could be smart for a lot of reasons or not? And does it need to be ongoing, or does it need to just be like a one-time thing? Does it need to cost a lot of money or not? Those are the questions to ask yourself or to talk to a media strategist about, to then get really clear so you can confidently take the next steps on making the project. So hopefully this video was helpful and I gave you good ideas that helped move you forward and not kind of get you stuck in your own thoughts. If you're feeling stuck or you're like, I have a project and I need a thought partner to figure out what this actually can be, feel free to send me an email, Christine@worthfulmedia.com, or leave a comment. Happy to chat further about these ideas. But I think it's a really cool time in media production, especially online, because we have all these awesome platforms and tools and we can now use them in the way that makes the most sense. And it's okay to start to rewrite some rules and blend some formats because we're there and we're ready. Okay, that's our video for this week. Thanks for bearing with me while I remembered what I was talking about. And we will see you in our next video.